Hi everybody and welcome back to Nick Talks. I got an email today from a friend of mine, Barry Wall, who's also known as the EDI Jester on YouTube, so make sure you check him out. There's nothing he says that you shouldn't know about, so make sure you sign up to his channel and you listen to his videos, links in the description. And he pointed me to a page on the Mayor's website about the LGBTQ touch your knees turnarounds, have a spin and do whatever you want, plus community page. And there's some stuff on there that even shocks me that I'm not happy about. So first of all, welcome Barry to the show.
Nick, it's great to see you again.
And you, always with you, Barry, always. So you sent me that link today. Why did you send me that link? I know it wasn't just to annoy me. There must have been another reason to send it as well.
Well, that was, of course, my major motivation was to annoy you, as you can imagine, being the kind of curmudgeon I am. But it came off the back of a series of events that have happened over the last 48 hours. I was lucky enough to be kindly invited by the Women's Rights Network, Manchester, who said to me, would you like to come and have some lunch so we can discuss issues within the movement against these unreality, the woke unreality of the world. And so I grabbed at the opportunity. It was just down the road. We had a fantastic luncheon and a very nice curry. These women are working very hard in the movement to protect women's spaces. So it was predominantly about the fact that they've recorded this council session, which is frankly unbelievable. And then they took out the bit that was obviously the most unbelievable bit, and they put it onto their Women's Rights Network Manchester YouTube channel, which is new. So that's on there as well. So you can go and see it on there. And also I've got a video coming out at 7:30 tonight. So that's another thing that's going to give people the opportunity to look at what's going on.
All the links Barry's talking about now will be in the description of this video. I'll make sure they're all there. Click on them and go watch this stuff.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Yes, it was astonishing to see them subvert the Equality Act. So that what they've said is they've taken a pledge that trans men are men and trans women are women, and they refuse to take the points from the Women's Rights Network representative who was asking, why are you letting men into women-only swimming pool sessions? It is quite frankly shocking to me, and I imagine that most of the people of Greater Manchester, on discovering that men could well be in the changing rooms and in swimming sessions with their wives, mothers, sisters, daughters, nieces, aunties, whichever you want, let alone the fact that we could well be talking about women of faith, Muslim women, Jewish women, and generally that Manchester Council are absolutely bereft of any kind of safeguarding at this level.
Let's get to their answer. What was their answer to this?
We're not going to take your opinion. Trans women are women. And then they followed up with, if somebody transitioned, they should be treated equally as a woman. It's all rubbish of the first order.
And that was Manchester City Council?
That's Manchester City Council.
So Manchester City Council now have decided that there's no such thing as a biological woman. A woman is someone who only identifies as a woman. That's basically what they've said.
That's what they've said. Now, I then went to look to see if I could find out whether Andy Burnham was part of this, whether he knew what was going on. And to my horror, I landed on the webpage that I sent to annoy you, in which they then discussed, he's set up a kind of LGBTQ, as I call them, a LGBTQ panel, which seems to be attached to this notion and to this motion that the council passed with all this stuff about trans men are men and trans women are women. And they also misquoted suicide statistics. They talked about suicide ideation, which is a very dangerous thing to do. They shouldn't be doing that either. So I think it's possible they've breached not just the Equality Act, but the public sector equality duty and the Nolan principles. So they could be in real trouble here. So having to find out whether Andy Burnham knows about this, I think is going to be an important thing that people of Manchester will want to know, because he can't possibly be in bed with this. And if he is, I don't think he's fit to be mayor.
He is in bed with this because it's on his website. It's on the Greater Manchester Combined Authority website, which has his logo on it and his name on the top of the page. So he's either not in control of his department, which is possible, or he's in full cahoots with this, but he's sensible enough to keep his head down because he wants to appeal to the lunatics, but doesn't want to upset the normal people. So either way, he's not fit for office. Now, the first thing I noticed when you sent me that page, I clicked on it, I looked at it and read it, and I was really surprised because I didn't think any of this was on his website. It's a page that nobody ever really sees. It's there for public access. Again, it's in, as you say, it's in the Dubris. Have a look at the description. It's in there. I'm copying your stuff now, Bobby. I'm copying your stuff. Now, this LGBTQ plus panel that he's commissioned to do this work has several aims. Now, the first aim I completely agree with, and the first aim is to keep people safe. I agree with that. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're trans. I don't care if you're two-spirited. I don't care if you're queer. I don't care if you're Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Jewish. I don't care. I really don't care. These are personal decisions an individual makes. And once you've made that decision as an adult, then the protection of the state should ensure your safety, living the life you want to live, as long as you're not breaking any laws. That's my opinion. Would you disagree with any of that, Barry?
No, well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't just. I mean, in particular, when it comes to people of religion, people have chosen a faith and they follow that faith, then they must be protected as much as anybody else. If you're a gay individual, then the chances are that you've been gay for a very long time, and you're going to be protected. That because that is an innate part of you, is your sexuality. So I would expect that. When it comes to the waffle about non-binary, which they've also got on the website, well, that's not even a thing. It's just nonsense of the first order. Well, how do we protect non-binary persons? In order to be non-binary, you must be part of a binary, the binary and the non-binary. It's utterly nonsensical. So I would not agree with what you're saying. Absolutely want to keep people safe. That's the mayor's job. Look at the terrible job being done in London, let alone what's happening in Manchester. So it's the mayor's job to keep people safe. And according to the public sector equality duty, which you will know, he should do so without favour. And the problem is they're elevating people. They're elevating people with one protected characteristic and people with no protected characteristic over, for example, women, disabled people, people of faith, gay men. So they're not just saying, oh, they can all go in the swimming pools. They're eradicating my sexuality as a gay man. Because if trans men are men.
Yep. So I take that as you agree. The mayor should be keeping everybody safe as long as that person is acting within the law.
Absolutely right.
For me, that's 100%. I ain't got an issue with that. I want people whose lifestyles I don't agree with to be safe and to be able to legally live the life they want to live, even a lifestyle I think is harmful. Because who am I to decide what you should do as an adult living as a free person in a free country? You should do what you want to do within the law. So that's a given. But then on his page, it gets a little bit sinister then, which this is where I disagree with. The next aim is we need to aim for diverse leadership. What the hell does that mean? I don't care about a diverse leadership. I just want the best leaders for the job of Greater Manchester. That's all I care about. I don't care if you're white, black, Muslim, gay. It makes no difference. I want the best people for the job. This whole ideology around diversity is the reason we're in this mess now. Our country is falling apart. Our country is crumbling. Why? We keep employing the wrong people to do the jobs we need them to do because they tick a box. They're gay. You're gay. You're a gay man. Me and you are good friends and you're a gay man. I would never give you a job because you're gay. I would only give you a job if you were the best person for that job. And the best person for the job, if I become mayor, for our equality, diversity, inclusion training will be you. You'll be running the mayor's office equality training because you're the only person I've ever met who understands the true meanings of that before it got perverted by this woke nonsense.
Do you remember the days of being competent? That would be a good thing, wouldn't it? I mean, it's just insane. I mean, I've seen this in my own work, as you know, that I've seen these where people are in work and they're simply not qualified to do the job, but they're there because of who they are rather than what they can do. So it's a real problem. But this is equity being pushed. And when you have equity being pushed, which is what the council think they're doing, is equality. It's not equality at all. They're doing something entirely different from equality of opportunity, just by shouting about the fact that they are doing it. They're not. They're interested in immutable characteristics. It's cultural Marxism. There's no getting away from it. And Andy Burnham seems to be up to his eyeballs in it. I'm always intrigued by the jostling of the different protected characteristics and how people use that tension to cause problems. It's called the porcupine paradox. which is that the porcupines in the winter, it's cold. They want to get close enough to each other to keep warm, but not too close so that their quills hurt each other. So, you know, we had that status quo right up until about 2014 when this nonsense really took off. And then the rocket fuel of Black Lives Matter made it far worse than it ever was before. And the attacks on women and on gay people, and certainly the lack of safeguarding for children in regards to gender identity ideology. So you know as well as I do what's creating it. I'm with you. I don't care if you're having sex with your lampstand in your bedroom. Do what you want. I don't care if you're dressing up as, you know, Mickey Mouse. I honestly don't care. Stop doing it in the public square. You know, so what we're seeing is an awful lot of the barrier breaking that queer theory brings. You remember we've talked about this before. The idea is to breach and break the barriers. And I want to know why Andy Burnham and Manchester City Council are supporting queer theory by having the Q, LGBTQ, when we, you know, and I know that the queer theorists, their only aim is to break down every boundary, including the boundary between adult and child.
And that's the scary bit.
Well, we have to be cautious about this. I keep having to say this. It's not about sex, right? That's because people think, oh God, they want to get their hands on their kids. Now there are no doubt that there are people like that everywhere. We know there are. But that's not the aim. When they say the aim is to break down the barrier between adult and child, they mean they want to make young children activists before they hit the point where they can think for themselves. So they've got to get them before they're 13. So they will attempt to teach this stuff in schools. They will attempt to teach this stuff within clubs. They will hold separate clubs for youngsters. They will hide under the LGB in order to get it done, which is why Manchester Council are using LGBTQ when I'm saying, hang on a minute, can you get the LGB off that, please? Because this has got nothing to do with us. And I think it's really important that the people of Manchester understand that this has got nothing to do with us, that these people are a separate, hard left, neoliberal bunch of nut jobs. Anything goes, but we're going to control it. It's the most insane conjunction. LGBTQI, whatever it may be, has got nothing to do with gays, lesbians, and bisexuals at all. It is now its completely own separate political hardline unit, and people need to know that, and why Manchester Council.
And it is political. That's the bit. Now, another aim on the website is we need to promote LGBTQ awareness. Now, let me say for this, what awareness needs to be done? It's bloody everywhere. You can't buy a sandwich in Marks and Spencer's without the bloody rainbow flag on it with this on it. You can't walk down this. You can't even use a zebra crossing without it being an LGBT zebra crossing. We don't need any more awareness. What we need is the LGBTQ plus people to shut up a little bit. That's what we need.
Absolutely. I don't know whether you saw this week, which was rather a bit of rather good news for a change, is the demise of the LGBTQ Rainbow Lanyard program in the NHS, which they have spent thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pounds getting off the ground, and which only turned out to be another one of those Stonewall things where if you don't tick the boxes, they look at you as if you're, you know, as if you're a naughty person. So these kinds of boondoggles are happening everywhere. They're going on in schools. I believe Manchester Council, Burnham, have actually started one or have got one going, and they funded it to go out to small businesses in Manchester and start pushing this. The only thing I can say to the small and medium businesses is, for God's sake, don't touch it. It is absolutely toxic from the top to the bottom. And the minute you let them in, they will destroy your organization because that's their job. They are cultural Marxists. Destruction is the only way forward. So it's really frustrating because people say to me, oh, well, you know, they've got the rainbow flag. And I mean, I'm a gay man, for God's sake. I like the original 6th one because, you know, the 6 stripes, because it included everyone, including you. It was everybody's included. Now we've got this progressive flag with the chevron and it's on the traffic lights and you see it wherever you go and they're wearing it over their neck. It's just an appalling colonization and parasitization of the lesbian and gay movement from the past 60 or 70 years. They've simply jumped on it, on the back of it. And it's an absolutely disgusting movement.
And I've heard you talk about before why this happened, and it's called forced teaming.
Yes.
Could you tell people what forced teaming is?
Well, forced teaming is when you find yourself in, say, for example, you've got a group like the LGB. So we used to have the LGB Foundation. It's now the LGBT. So what happens is there is a gradual encroachment upon people from another group who eventually parasitize the group completely and take over. So almost like an ichneumon fly, or Alien. Remember Alien? We go down the throat. So yeah, there's that. Yeah. So forced teaming is when you're put together with people that have very little in common with you, except they happen to fit into a strand of what the intersectional cultural Marxists think is a good idea. So the fact that LGBTQI2SA, whatever the hell they've got it now, is all together is simply because the hard left and the neoliberals think that these people are all oppressed, therefore they are all the same. They all have the same oppressor. Well, it's nonsense, absolute bloody nonsense. I've got nothing in common with a paraphilic bloke who wants to stride around in knickers and stockings in public, or a fetishistic cross-dressing straight man. I've got nothing in common with either of those two because the vast majority of them aren't gay. And likewise, I've got nothing in common with terribly confused young girls who think that they can escape from being a woman by being a man, or by terribly confused men, young men who are gay, who think that being effeminate and pretending to be a woman is a way to get out of being gay. This is conversion therapy. It's gay conversion therapy with a new overcoat. And that was said recently in the fantastic House of Lords debate about the conversion therapy bill, where for the first time ever, we finally got the words "it's a cult" into Hansard. So we are making extraordinary headway on this, Nick. It's just that people, the general public, still haven't quite woken up to how dangerous this is.
They haven't. So let's wake them up now. So the final aim on this website, on the mayor's website, Andy Burnham's website in Greater Manchester, is this aim, which is we need to improve access into public spaces for LGBTQ plus people, which means men into female spaces. If that does not wake the public up, then I don't think anything will.
You're absolutely right. So let's go back to what we said about the forced teaming. Take the LGB off, and what you're left with is the TQ plus. Well, nobody seems to see what that means. He seems to be able to understand what that means. What is trans? Well, that's a collective name, like vegetables. I think it's probably a good idea if we told the difference between the Swede and the turnip, right? So that's the trans is a collective name. The Q, I've already said, is just nefarious, and the plus, God only knows what furries, what men in gimp masks. You know, neoliberals dressed as chickens riding horses. I don't know. It could be absolutely anything as far as I'm concerned. But you're right. Take the LGB off, and what you've got is we need to give TQ plus more access to spaces, and they want access to women's spaces, to women's toilets, to women's organisations, to women's swimming parties. And what about women's wards? What about Annex B, the NHS, the disgraceful NHS Annex B, which allows men LARPing as women to be in female wards? And what about the young girls in school who won't go to toilet because they've now got gender neutral toilets and the boys are in there? Why would they? It's utterly deranged. And I think it also underestimates how awful some men can be. That's the other thing. No, not all men, of course. Like you've said, as I have, that the answer to protection to the safety of women and children is more men, more good ones, not less. Now, what we've now got is an emphasis on these LARPing men who get centered in the news, they get centered on television, they get centered on Twitter. They need to go away. We're not interested in your gusset fumbling. You need to go away. So they're not even sure what they're supporting. What do they mean by trans? Is it cross-dressers, paraphiliacs? Is it the men that want to invade women's spaces? Who is it exactly that you're supporting? They don't genuinely know. And I think that's what's so dangerous, is that there is this forced teaming that you mentioned, but also they don't understand what the hell they're talking about. And somebody's given them the wrong information. And my guess is it's these LARPers in this group that he's got set up. These people, they've all got pronouns next to their names. What are you doing? I mean, it's a signifier of a fealty to a belief system that doesn't believe sexuality exists, doesn't think sex exists, and thinks men can be women.
Yep. I looked at the 12 names, and out of the 12 names, again, as you said, all with pronouns next to them. Out of the 12 names, 11 of them were English names. One was you'd say is a foreign-based name. Where are the Muslim names in this? Where are the ethnic minority names in this? There isn't any. Do you know why? Because this is a white middle class cult that they infect their children, and their children then think this is the way to behave. Now, I had a personal experience about this a year ago in Marks and Spencer's. I was with my wife shopping. And my wife doesn't hear most of the things I say, and it disagrees with a fair bit of what I say. And we don't talk about politics. It's the only way we can live together is we don't talk about politics. She's a lot more left leaning than me. And we're in Marks and Spencer's. She got some tops off a rail, look very nice. And I said, go try them on. right size, we'll buy him now. And she went, no, I'll take him home and try him on. I went, that means we've got to come back if you need a different size. Try him on. And she went, I don't want to in case there's men in the changing room. And this is a strong woman who's not political. And that was this was last year. This was the first time I ever realised how it affects normal women. Here was a woman who went, there probably isn't anyone in there, but I just don't want to in case. And the reason why we created female only spaces is because there's a tiny percentage of men who are violent perverts, and good men keep them in check. But how do we keep them in check when we allow them to enter spaces that the good men are not allowed to go into? So therefore, we put our women in tremendous danger by pushing them into basically dark entries and say to them, come out when you say, come out if you're safe. Well, no. We need to make sure that entry is safe, that changing room is safe, that swimming pool is safe. That's what men do to protect our women. You might call it misogynistic, you might call it old-fashioned. I don't care. My job as a man is to protect our children, our girls, and our women. And this is why we're fighting this cause. For one moment, I don't believe the majority of trans people are perverts or rapists, because they're not. But I'll tell you this, if you were a pervert, a rapist, why wouldn't you pretend you were trans to get into that space to rape a woman? Of course you would. That doesn't mean trans people are rapists, because most of them are not. But if you're a rapist, you will pretend you are. That's the bit the woke don't get.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the importance is, let's not get drawn into it just being trans, because you were right first time round. Men don't belong in women's spaces. Women are saying, with voices stentorian, no. And it's men and women aren't listening to them, right? I don't want men in women's changing rooms. I don't want, I always can't help but go back to this, Nick, because it's so heartbreaking. You imagine the women in prison with these men. These men who are in prison, and they're often in prison for sexual offences, and they're in women's prisons. This is a disgrace. It's a national disgrace that we are allowing this falsity that men can be women and women can be men to enter our society and to be legislated in such a way. So I would say that our only way forward at this point is to repeal the GRA, the Gender Recognition Act. We can't have fake sex identities running around the country. You simply can't do it.
Yeah, sex is binary. That's all it is. I've started telling people for about a year or two now, I'm a gender denier. There's no such thing as gender. It doesn't exist. When people say gender, they mean one of two things. They either mean biological sex or they mean sex-based roles. So let's go back to those two definitions. Gender does not exist. I'm a gender denier.
I'll join with you and say it. It's like I always say, isn't it? Gender identity is personality and gender expression is fashion. Bug off. You know, I don't need to hear about your nonsense and your wibbling and you wearing whatever you're wearing. And the problem is that we've now got to make sure that these men that are doing this, who are paraphilic or who are bringing their fetish into the public, are told in no uncertain terms, you need to go back to the private space. We do not have this in public. And I think that's what we need to do. There's an element of there that means that men have got to start saying to other men, you need to back off. I don't want to see you out in public like this. You can't behave this way. Because if you've got somebody who's got, and you know as well as I do, personal services. I did a video about it the other day. But we've had gusset fumblers and knicker wearers and people pretended to be God knows what since the year dot, right? Fine. Do that in the privacy of your own home. Do it when you're having fun with whoever it is you're having fun with. But I don't want these men in workplaces because they're practicing their fetish or their paraphilia without the consent of every individual that's with them. That's what gets me. So the answer is no, right? No. Okay, there's no reason for you to do this. And I've never come across a situation before, except for eugenics, and lobotomy, where we've treated psychological conditions with medical outcomes. It's an absolute disgrace. And in doing so, encourage children to have puberty blockers, which not only lowers their IQ, it also affects their bone density. It makes them more likely to certain cancers and MS, multiple sclerosis. It's an absolute disgrace. And I don't think most of the people of Manchester are yet aware of the full size of this medical and societal and cultural scandal.
I agree. I don't think men will stand up to this until women sort themselves out. Until
Well,
women,
you always say that to me.
well, yeah, because the reason why men won't stand up is because there's women on both sides of this telling men what to do. So men don't know what to do because we have women on both sides. We have the, we have the people who are against this, the women against this, saying men stick up for us, and we have women on the other side going, men, you shouldn't be dictating who can be a woman. So men don't know what to do. So women need to sort themselves out. So,
well, yeah, I just, I disagree with you on this. I think you're full of it when you say this, right? Women's Rights Network, Sex Matters, right? Transgender Trend, Safe Schools Alliance. What else have we got? Our Duty was set up by Keith, so I'm not calling Keith a woman, right? But all of those groups were run by women organizing. The Women's Rights Network I met with yesterday, they've been saying this for a very long time indeed.
but they've not been good enough at getting their message out because we still have the majority of feminists in this country are still promoting this rubbish. So I'm on the side of the women you just mentioned. I want this gone, but if they're thinking men are going to sort this problem out for them, they're wrong. Men won't. Women have to sort this problem out, and once women sort this problem out, men will be on their side. Then it's a civil war at the moment. Men don't know which side to take.
So that's it. I mean, you bring a very interesting thing to the fore there. So I think my question would be, are you saying that the message is not coherent?
The women who are against gender ideology, their voice is far too silent. All we hear, yes, yeah, as a straight man, that voice is still too silent. All we hear about in the mainstream press, the media, everything else, it's still the progressive feminists who have the biggest voice, who are still saying, you're a bigot if you think, actually, you're a misogynist if you think trans women aren't women. Men don't know what to do. That is the issue. If women can convince men to do what they need to do, men will sort it out in a fortnight, but we don't know what to do.
So let's see if we can bring some clarity to men. Let's give men some resources. So I'll send you a list of resources that you can put into the Dubris, right? Okay. And I would suggest that men start by looking at things like Keep Prison Single Sex, which is run by women, by looking at things like the history of trans widows. That will break your heart, the things these men do, right? The history of trans widows. Have a look at the work of Sex Matters. So I think we can include in the Dubris, go and have a look, men, and find out what the women have been doing, because we do need you. We do need you. And of course, they're going to, it's women think differently to men, but we can still collaborate. So I feel that let's put that into your description so that men watching this who are unsure about what they can do can go and see the work that women have been doing and understand exactly, because you have to put the work in, Nick. You know this, and so do I. It's a big issue. So I would urge men, if you're unaware of what's going on, find me on Twitter or Nick, at Head Warrior TWM, and just say, I don't get it. Right. And if you don't get it, then we'll do our best to provide you with what you need to get it, because women have been calling this out since 1978. Right. So that obviously their voices have not been heard in the way that they could be. And the mainstream media doesn't report it anyway.
And more importantly, can you send me some links for women who are watching this, who know this is wrong, feel this is wrong, deep down inside, they just know it's wrong, but have no ability to express themselves, nothing to back it up. So they're living a lie knowing this is wrong. They're the ones I really want to educate. So can you send me some links for women who can link it?
I certainly can. The Women's Rights Network's Manchester is a collection of women that are doing work on this level. And that could be anything from how it works, putting a sticker on a lamppost or talking in the House of Lords. It could be anything. So I will certainly send you that as well, so that you've also got that to put in your Dubris. And it's important for them to recognize that you don't have to speak out, but do get in touch. I think that's the important thing. Find other people like you who are thinking like you are. The same goes for gay men. If you've got gay men in Manchester who think like this, do find me on Twitter. And for those that really want to get stuck in, you know that I run the Winning Mindset, the Warrior Teacher Program. And a few of the Warrior Teachers have done some great work lately on this. We've had a couple of the men. One of the men called Richard, has analysed some data being done by these so-called queer scientists, which turns out to be rubbish. What a surprise. And we've got another one whose name has unfortunately escaped me. I'll come back to me in a minute, who's just recently appeared in front of Colchester Council. So, you know, there are men getting involved now in much bigger numbers than there were last time you and I talked. And I think that's fascinating. So I would say if you really want to get involved and get a quick lesson on how to do what you do and how to see it and how best to do it, come and join the Winning Mindset, because we're really doing some great work now.
Yeah, and that's the Winning Mindset. Again, it'll be in the description. I highly recommend that. That is, if you want to understand this and understand how you can speak, how you can help, how you can explain this. I mean, this is a very complicated situation. Gender ideology and this woke nonsense is extremely complicated. You just you can't learn one or two phrases and think you can shoot people down. You've got to understand the history, how it developed, where it came from, how it's been perverted. This is the training course you need to go on that Barry runs. So sign on to that. That'll be in the description. But Barry, cheers. Last 30 seconds. What is your last 30 seconds of advice for anybody watching this video?
Stop sticking your head in the sand. It's horrible. It's horrible to know it, and it's horrible to see it. And it really jolts you when you realize how much of our belief in progress has been perverted by woke. Don't be frightened. It's normal to feel very uncomfortable when you learn about this, because it does sort of shatter what you thought the world was about. But don't let that stop you from digging in. Reach out, find groups in your area. Women, find the Women's Rights Network. Men, try and hook up with not hook up literally, but try and hook up. Well, maybe. No, stop. Right, hook up with other men. You know, try and find if there's other people that you know on Twitter or on Facebook or on social media, and just make that first tentative step of saying, hello, I'm a bit confused, or hello, I know what's going on and I'd like to help. Because it can be anything from writing a letter to signing a petition to sending a tenner to a group that needs help to get someone to court, or getting out there on the streets and actually talking about it. Don't be frightened. Come and get involved.
That's great. Cheers, Barry. See you soon.
Thanks, Nick. See you soon.
If you like that video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell and comment. And if you like what I'm saying about running for Mayor of Greater Manchester, then stick around. Tell your family, tell your friends. The only way I'm going to have a chance of winning is a grassroots movement. So be part of that movement and hit that bell. Thanks.